Today we're taking a closer look at the Glycerin 20 from Brooks. There aren't any minor tweaks and adjustments here. The 20 is bigger, has a new upper, nitrogen infused midsole, and Brooks are claiming an improved fit, but is it better? I've put 150 miles in this shoe to find out. Let's go. Hello and welcome back to The Vegan Runner. Now I've been waiting for the Glycerin 20 to come along for a while now. I've picked up the 19 14 months ago and it quickly became my favourite daily trainer of 2021. It was extremely soft, comfortable and impressively durable, clocking up over 500 miles before the foam started to give way. I was impressed. It was my first pair of Brooks, my first ever super plush shoe, and I couldn't wait to see what they would do with the next model. In my opinion, all it needed really was a tweak to the upper, which sometimes ran a little warm, and to the heel cup, which took a bit of time to mellow out. But to be honest, it was almost a perfect shoe for that daily training, so just needed a bit of tweaking. So imagine my shock when I pulled the Glycerin 20 out of the box. It's a comparative monster compared to its predecessor, and by my measurements we've got an extra ½ centimetre of foam in the heel, increasing the stack height by a similar amount, and we're nearing next percent territory here, with my measurements putting the height of the heel at about 39 millimetres, which is just below the legal limit. And it's noticeable as soon as you put the shoes on your feet. It feels very reminiscent of the Nike Vaporfly and Alphafly shoes. You just feel very tall and very huge, almost as if you're wearing platforms. The new nitrogen infused DNA Loft version 3, which Brooks claim is super soft and plush, just isn't as responsive or as squishy as the 19. The shoe is also a little heavier than its predecessor, coming in at almost 300 grams in my size. It's also missing some of that ground feel, and with so much foam stuffed in there, you get relatively little feedback from the ground, whereas on the previous model, despite it being pretty plush and squishy, it still maintained a decent level of feedback about the surface that you're running on. Now this doesn't necessarily make it a bad shoe, and it's not by the long way, but it is a very different ride from the previous model. It's still a long run shoe, still just about a daily trainer and something you're going to pick out for recovery runs, but for anything faster than sort of long run or recovery pace, you're going to want to look elsewhere. It's just too heavy to feel comfortable at speed, and the huge slab of foam just feels pretty clunky whilst at anything above that kind of long run pace. Whereas in the Glycerin 19, it may not have been the first shoe that you'd pick off the rack for an interval session. It could handle a fast session and was a decent all-rounder. Now the 20 is firmly in the long run category for me. It just feels too clunky at anything above zone 2 pace. Being a neutral road shoe, you'd expect a little bit of flexibility through that foam, but it's actually pretty stiff, and again a lot stiffer than the 19. And it's quite strange. It feels more stable because it offers less of that twist, but because of the stack height, I find it a more unstable ride over long distances, as my ankles have sort of more height and more room to collapse inwards. I find the exact same thing in other shoes with a high stack height, but I'm willing to sacrifice that stability for a lot of super energetic foam and a carbon plate on race day, but this isn't a race day shoe, not by a long way, and I'm looking for something with a little bit more help with maintaining good form than the Glycerin 20 is providing over that long run. I found using the extra eyelets to lock down the laces a little higher helped with the stability issues, but not to the point where I was completely happy with the shoe. Now Brooks have reworked the upper on this model, but with the exception of a few new decals, it's difficult to tell the difference here. It's still a very solid, well-built upper, which lacks a little in the breathability department, but it still provides a really comfortable fit, lockdown and support. The extremely plush and well-cushioned heel cup feels largely the same. still provides great comfort and security, and the tongue feels almost exactly the same. Again, it's cushioned and comfortable. One noticeable difference here is the lacing. In the 20, Brooks have gone for this quite popular flat lacing here. The 19 had this very strange kind of circular kind of hollow laces that frayed very quickly, whereas the new laces look like they will go the distance before looking a bit shabby. There's been some minor tweaks to the grip pattern on the outsole. We've got small patches of the exposed DNA loft foam and a little more rubber covering the majority of the outsole. Like the previous version, the grip is very good and the rubber feels durable. I've run on just about every kind of surface in these shoes: road, fire track, coastal trails, in a range of different conditions, and I never once felt like I didn't have enough grip underfoot for the conditions. There are some signs of wear, but after 150 miles, nothing that's ringing any alarm bells at the moment, and I fully expect the tread to last the lifetime of the shoe. Now this brings me onto a big positive of the shoe. It's built like an absolute tank. The Glycerin 19 took on hundreds of miles of running, and I think the 20 will as well. I expect to get at least 500 miles of this shoe, and it'll be interesting to see if the new foam softens up a little bit as the miles tick over, and to see how it develops generally as it starts to break down. From an overall looks perspective, I prefer the way this shoe looks compared to the 19. It still has a bit of a dad shoe kind of vibe, but I really like the red, orange and black colorway, and the fading of the red to white on the midsole is a pretty cool touch. It's difficult to fully appreciate, but the red second layer of upper on the forefoot contrasts well against the black, which again looks pretty cool to me. The midsole has these unique and quite strange bulges to them, so it is quite a unique looking shoe, but once they get to about 500 miles, so long as they don't look too beat up and they've come to the end of their running life, I'd be quite happy wearing these around town as a general trainer. I had such a great experience with the Glycerin 19s, I can't help but feel a little bit let down with the latest version. The Glycerin 20 has taken a big leap from its predecessor, but bigger isn't always better, and although it's still a decent shoe and I think many people are going to be really happy running in these, for me it's not a step forwards, it's more of a kind of like sideways step to a different kind of shoe. But it isn't the same or even better than the previous version. If you've got on with the Glycerin 19s and you're looking for a shoe with a similar feel, check out the Asics Gel Nimbus 24. Now that shoe is very plush and squishy and comfortable over those long miles, but has enough flexibility to handle some speed work too, and is very reminiscent of the Glycerin 19, so check those out. Now I'm going to keep running in the Glycerin 20 and try to get them up to 500 miles to see how they perform over time. Maybe I'll shake off the ghost of the Glycerin 19 and I'll grow to love them for what they are. And I'll be sure to give you an update when I get them to 500 miles, so hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching, and until the next one, be the best you.